Hello and welcome to my parents' basement. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. As you can probably already tell from the runtime, this is going to be a long one, but it's one that I've wanted to make for a very long time, and if you can't already tell by the title, this is my Mr. Beast story. And for those of you who are unaware, I was chosen a few months ago to compete in a Mr. Beast video for $1 million. But I'll kind of get to the story of that in a second. Just wanted to let you know kind of up front, this is just going to be an uncut video. As you can tell by the length, it's just going to be me pretty much detailing my thoughts on the whole experience is from my perspective, and just what happened, how it happened, what I enjoyed, what I thought was super cool about the experience, interactions with the Mr. Beast gang, and just kind of some of the stuff that went on. Just to let you guys know what ended up kind of happening with the whole thing, and just kind of give you a long uncut perspective into what it's like to meet Mr. Beast and do that whole thing. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video. I would do this as a live stream, but I feel like this would be a very boring and long live stream. So I figure I'd put it in a YouTube video where you can kind of go at your own pace and that kind of thing. But if you do have questions, I know it might be better to have a live Twitch chat for questions like this. If you have any questions or anything you want to ask me about, feel free to leave a comment. I'm pretty diligent about responding. And if you like this video, cheesy YouTuber thing to say, but go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But onto the content, because I really think you guys will enjoy this, or at least I hope you do. So here goes. So it all started at the end of October. I think it was the last day of October, the first day of November. It was the Saturday before Election Day, 2020. And I'm watching Mr. Beast live stream. He's going to do a live stream for 24 hours, and he's selling signed T-shirts in the duration of that 24 hours. And essentially, while he's doing this live stream, he's picking people to compete in a video on his channel for $1 million in some competition. It was very vague at the time. He said something about there was going to be a circle, and he basically left it at that. He was like, there's going to be some surprises and challenges along the way. But I mean, really vague. You could tell he was trying to leave it a surprise for the viewer base, and I can respect him for that. And as you'll see soon, it was going to be a very entertaining video. I think it was going to be kind of his big year-end Christmas video, like his big extravaganza video at the end of the year. But obviously more on that later. So I'm watching the stream, and I basically just decide, Mr. Beast says this is going to be his last signing. I like Mr. Beast. I support what he does, so I'm going to buy a T-shirt. And I just kind of jokingly look over at my dad, and I'm like, I just spent $50 on a T-shirt, but at least I have the potential to be in $1 million contest or something. And my dad just kind of rolls his eyes, and I end up just kind of closing out the stream from there. And I walked upstairs, and I think I talked to my dad for a little bit, and I talked to Mom for a little bit, because I still live at my parents' house as I go through college. So that whole thing happened, that whole just kind of interactions with my parents. I come back downstairs to where my computer was, and I go to my Gmail, and there's people who are commenting on videos on this YouTube channel that you're watching right now. And they were saying stuff like, did you win something from Mr. Beast? You're going to meet Mr. Beast. All this stuff. And I kind of figured okay, maybe I won an Xbox or something. That's awesome. Because he was doing other giveaways too, with the big end of the night giveaways. It was going to be a Tesla or something. So I figured I had won maybe some small prize, but I go back in the live stream, and sure enough, he reads off my name. Which I'll go ahead and unprivate a video that I have, and you can go in my videos and watch it once this video is up, of him reading my name off on stream, and basically how they're going to get in touch with me and all that stuff. It made it sound like it'd be a few days before I even got contacted, let alone, go out and start the process of getting the video made. The next day, I get a text and a phone call from somebody within the Mr. Beast team, and they basically say, we're planning on shipping you out on Tuesday, on election day. So I'm still doing college work, so I basically had to tell all my teachers what was going on. I had to pack up all my stuff. I went as far to get like a cellular, like like a hotspot, and bring it with me just in case the Wi-Fi at the hotel that I was going to be staying at was crappy. I over prepared for this because, how do you prepare for something like this, especially when you don't even know what the challenge is, or anything like that. So I got everything, like as much as I could, packed. And a couple days later, I woke up at like 6 a.m. to vote, and then hopped on a plane and went to the hotel where I'd be staying for the next couple weeks while I quarantined. And every contestant had to do a 2-week quarantine in this hotel. The flights were paid for, the hotels paid for. Like, Mr. Beast did a fantastic job. Him and his company just did a fantastic job of making sure that logistically, in terms of getting to the hotels or where we needed to be, it was efficient, and they made sure that we were well taken care of. We had a staffer at the hotel for Mr. Beast at all times who we could contact at any point if we needed to. Just very well taken care of. Our accommodations were amazing, and I can't stress enough how they went above and beyond to make sure that this hotel experience, for what it was worth, was going to be a good one. And our hotel was nice too. Our hotel, it was a 2-room hotel. So, at least my room was. The rooms kind of varied a little bit, but I think at the first hotel I stayed at, which I'll get to more on that in a little bit as well, I stayed at more than one hotel. The one that we all stayed at first had like a living area and like a bedroom, so you had plenty of space to kind of move around and kind of run around your little apartment that they had for you. It was great. I really can't stress enough how good our accommodations were. On top of that, we didn't just have hotel food either, which is great. The person who was on staff who was staying with us would order food from both local restaurants and places like Domino's, Moe's, if you're familiar with Moe's. Just different restaurants from all around, really. But yeah, I was during all that. I was doing school and just kind of talking to my parents. Discord game nights with my friends were huge. And to any of my friends who participated in those game nights while I was in quarantine, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. More than you know, being trapped alone in a hotel room for 2 weeks, not exactly the most fun of experiences. It was made as good as it could be, but still, at the end of the day, you're staying in a hotel room for 2 weeks. So to people who reached out and that kind of thing, I'm very grateful for, even to this day. But that hotel stay went great. I won't go into too much detail on the hotel stay outside of that because it's a hotel stay. But I'd say 1 week and 4 days in or so, through most of the quarantine, we were already through most of the quarantine, when I get a phone call from the Mr. Beast staffer who's staying with us, and she has details for us. She says, we are going to get you COVID tested on this day and make sure that you're all negative. And then after that, we are going to put you all on a bus and move you to the place where we're going to be actually filming the video. So we've been staying in a hotel for a while, and I'm not going to mention any locations or names. I'm sure that some of the people who are in the competition would be fine with it, and I'm sure there are some locations that I could say I would just rather not for sake of privacy. But essentially, we were staying at one place, and we thought it would be at one place, and we went to a completely different place. Just to put it like short and sweet. So a couple days later, we wake up in the morning and we get COVID tested. We wait for the results, and by the evening, we're in a bus headed to the next hotel. And this hotel that we stayed at, this second one, was not as nice as the first one in terms of like, it was only one room and that kind of thing. But it was like a historic one, so it was really like cool to look around at, and it was really neat. I'll say that, even though it wasn't as nice as the first place, it was kind of a cool experience, I would say. But once we got to that hotel, we were told we'd only be staying there for one night. And then the next morning, we would be having a breakfast with Mr. Beast and some of the guys. And then, hopefully by lunchtime, we'd be starting the filming of the video. So I go to bed at around 1 o'clock in the morning, along with everybody else, because the bus ride was 4 hours, and it started at like 8 or something. So it was pretty late by the time that all of us could get settled in and go to bed. And on the bus ride, we were all very talkative because we'd been trapped in a hotel room for 2 weeks. So I end up going to bed. I actually got a night's sleep, which I'm pretty surprised at. I didn't think I'd be able to get much sleep the night before potentially competing for a very large sum of money. But the next morning, I get up and I start heading downstairs. And I can't remember exactly where I'm going, exactly where I was going, but I ended up having to go. I think I was going down the elevator, and the elevator doors open up, and standing right in front of me, of course, is Jimmy, Mr. Beast himself. And my first reaction to seeing Mr. Beast, and it would be your first reaction too, is, wow, he's tall. Mr. Beast is like 6'4", 6'5". He's as tall as he says he is. I know he's done some like interviews where he's talked about his height. He is really tall, and noticeably so. But I just kind of gave him like the, oh hey person, I didn't expect you here, and kind of awkwardly got on the elevator and went downstairs. And there was another, like, one of the contestants who was standing next to me, and I was just kind of doing like the fan freak out, like, oh, it was him. But we ended up getting down to the bottom of the elevator. There were a couple like conference rooms, so we go to the one, sit down, and one of the managers for the Mr. Beast team kind of comes and gives us kind of a spiel of what's about to happen, like how this interaction's supposed to go, all of that fun stuff. We all sit down, socially distant, which we didn't need to be. We were told later we didn't need to be because we'd been quarantined for 2 weeks and had tested negative for COVID. But we all got in a big circle. Carl was the first one that we actually, like, as a group interacted with. And then Mr. Beast, Chandler, and Chris all came later and hung out. So that was really cool. We just kind of got to sit and chill for a little while. It was cool, but I must admit, it was also really awkward. It was one of those conversations that just, like, I think we were all just kind of dumbstruck by the fact that we really were in this competition and the guys really were there. So it was kind of one of those, like, how's the weather been kind of conversations where nobody knew what to say. But it was a good thing that it was awkward at that point. And the reason I say that is because we needed to get our kind of awkward vibes out to start with, because once we got to the actual challenge itself, we needed to be good for the camera and not be awkward. So really this like lunch thing, I don't think was as much to get us to know the guys and hang out and have a merry old time, but it was to get kind of the opening jitters out, which it succeeded at least from what I saw. But then after this breakfast, we kind of got a minute to compose ourselves in our hotel rooms, get any supplies that we needed, anything like that, and then we packed up and with any essentials that we needed and hopped in a bus and went to the location where the challenge was going to be. So we get to the site and we find out what the challenge is going to be specifically, along with the fact that it is outdoors. The outdoors factor plays into this later, at least for me it did, and for a few of the other contestants it did as well. But those are a couple things I think you should know at this point. It was outdoors, and the challenge was a last to leave the circle challenge. And sitting right smack dab in the middle of that circle was $1 million. Actually, it was $1.2 million because they needed to fit it in the case that they had, so they put extra money in it. Sitting smack dab in the middle of the circle in $1 bills. It was just kind of insane to look at. Like I don't know. It was just one of those things that you never think you're going to see in your life, and then it's sitting right in front of you. I don't know how else to really explain it other than that. It felt so off that we were where we were and we were doing what we were doing. But we ate lunch on the bus that we had been transported in, and we were told we'd be starting soon. But there were some delays. They had to get some audio stuff and some other like lighting stuff set up as well. We were told we'd be starting around lunchtime. We actually ended up starting closer to like 7:30 in the evening. But just because there was a delay doesn't mean we were any less happy to be there. And we spent plenty of time just kind of sitting. There was a big like trailer on set. So we sat next to this trailer and got snacks, and they gave us some energy drinks, which we were all very thankful for, especially given the fact that we were up until 1 the previous night. So we just kind of sat, congregated, had a good old time, talked about our individual lives, where we came from, and there were people in this competition from all across the United States, everywhere from East Coast to West Coast. It was crazy. I was interacting with people from states I've never been to or even gotten remotely close to. It was just a really diverse, cool group of people, all with different backgrounds. And it was just really neat to be able to congregate with those people and get to know them and kind of their backgrounds. So I really enjoyed that. And we did that for probably 6 or 7 hours. They gave us some sunscreen too because the sun was beaming down on us. And then Mr. Beast ended up filming the intro. And now something that I think is kind of, I won't say obvious when you watch his videos, but something that I think you could tell if you paid close enough attention. The guys are actually fairly introverted, and I won't say self-conscious. Like, I don't think that's the right term for it, but they definitely I don't know. They very much are. They're not as social as they would have you seem in the YouTube videos, but I think that speaks to their talent in terms of, if you can make it look like you are the most social, interactive people on the planet, and in person not introverts, but just a little more they're more on the introverted side. I'll put it that way. I think speaks to how good they are at their craft. So, we all kind of sit away to the side while Jimmy films his intro, and he used what's some of the production team referred to as the Jimmy voice, which I just absolutely loved the term for. But he actually kind of talks loudly when he does his intros and things, partially because it sounds better on the mic and the audio when he is more enthusiastic and he kind of booms at the camera, right? But it was a transformation like that where he snapped into the Mr. Beast character, and seeing him just kind of go from this college-aged kind of introverted guy to we're doing YouTube now, and here's my introduction, and here's how we're gonna do it. It was kind of bizarre. It was really neat to be a part of that process. It was really cool to see how that was done. But at the same time, it was just I don't think I ever expected that I would ever see kind of that level of transformation. I mean, like, maybe if I was on a movie set, but I think it really just kind of clicked that, like, this is the amount of effort that these people on YouTube go into to perfect their craft and really put on a show for the audience, and a good show at that. I think Mr. Beast has pretty much perfected the art of YouTube. So that all said, he then kind of does this like take of us standing outside of the circle, and he says, you know, like, when they step into the circle, they're not going to be able to walk out. And the way that he that it was presented, I thought it was going to be like a multiple take thing, but it ended up just being one take. So I just kind of like slowly like walked my way into the circle. It was super awkward. At least I was super awkward during that moment. Other people were just like sprinting into the circle, like ready for it. I was just like, oh, we're going now? We're live? So, but then the challenge started. And we were in the circle. The lights were on us, and they basically told us, you know, to just walk around. It was a pretty big circle. I mean, you had to fit all 24 of us contestants, and I would say about 30 feet in perimeter, maybe a little smaller, maybe a little bigger. I'm not great at estimating sizes, but enough for us to be able to walk around and, you know, have quite a bit of space. So yeah, the camera guys kind of went around and did some initial interviews of some of the contestants, and we kind of did our own things. And some people would hang around the $1 million and just kind of congregate there and talk and whatever. Other people just be like laying down. The most invigorating activity that we really were able to do was walk in circles. Because, I mean, what else are we going to be able to do in a circle but walk in circles? Fortunately, we did get some amenities. You would think that, like, it's a Mr. Beast video, it's just going to be, like, torture, and we all expected that going in. I talked to quite a few of the contestants, and they were all just like, what's the surprise going to be? What's going to be the thing that, like, he's going to throw in here to throw us off? And at least for the first night, that didn't happen. What did happen, though, is they put a porta potty in the circle, which Carl ended up, like, bursting out of, and that was hilarious. It was also kind of cool to see, like, when they were filming skits, right? Because there were the ones that they had planned out, and you could tell they were, like, planned skits that they were going to do, and they were quite entertaining. But there were other ones that we, like, generated as a group of people as well. I'll get to one of those in just a minute. But we kind of had we were kind of walking around the circle and doing our own little thing for a bit. And Jimmy walks out, and he's got a briefcase in his hand. He sets it on the $1 million, opens it up, and he says, in this briefcase is $10,000. To the first person who gets out, should they choose to do so now, they get to keep the $10,000. Nobody budged. I mean, nobody. And Mr. Beast essentially was like, okay. And we continued the challenge. We got further into the night. I'd say 10 or 11. Maybe we got dinner or something like that. At like 9 o'clock, we surrounded like Carl in like a big circle, and we just went food, 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 food. And that's one of the skits that I remember best that was like audience generated. We also were given hand warmers because it ended up being strikingly cold during this challenge outside, and we used the hand warmers as if they were a form of currency. Like, we cherished these hand warmers. They were important to us. We had to keep them. So around time passed, we walked in more circles and did more camera interviews and skits and different things. Midnight rolls around, and Chris and Carl pull up in a pickup truck, and they start chucking sleeping bags and pillows at us, and basically say, hide them from Jimmy. And so obviously we blame Tariq. If you don't know Tariq, he's been in a few of the videos. But yeah, we blamed Tariq on giving us the sleeping bags and the pillows, even though it was It was Chris and Carl. So that was another fun little thing we did. And we spent no time staying up. Most of us went immediately to bed because I think we all realized that sleep was going to be a valuable asset in this competition. So we woke up next morning, got breakfast, and then if I have my days straight, which I'll ask the other contestants. This was the day when we really got a lot of time to kind of connect with the guys. We got basically canvases, like tents that they put in the circle, and Chris and Chandler and Carl all came out and they sat, and they just talked. Chris talked about like 90s cartoons and things that he grew up with, and he also recommended the anime Jujutsu Kaisen, which I watched because of him, and I must recommend to you. It's a very good show. But just kind of a fun little session where we just got to have some personal time with the Mr. Beast gang, and they told stories, and we got to interact with them. And I found that to be really cool, and probably the part that I'll remember the most fondly is just being able to sit with them, not as celebrities, not as YouTube personalities, but just college guys. They're maybe older, maybe younger. They're kind of in the early to mid 20s. Just talking about their interests and hanging out. I just found that really cool, and I really enjoyed that. And that went on for a couple hours. And they took the tents away after a while, these like canopies that were hovering above us. And of course, that's when the sun just came beaming down, super hot. So they gave us sunscreen and lunch, along with more energy drinks. They would give us energy drinks once a day, usually around lunchtime. They'd give us like 124 pack, and we like ravaged it like animals. It wouldn't last long, but we would do that. We did all that, had lunch, all that, and we could tell they were kind of setting up for something. We did more shenanigans. I believe that was the afternoon as well, where they had a basketball shooting contest. There's a basketball hoop that they had on set, and it was probably like 30, 40 feet away. It was a very long distance, if not further. And you had Chandler and Tyler, who was there as well, in basically a contest of who could make this basket first. Chandler won. I didn't think Chandler would win, but he did. I also got to play like defense, like one-on-one against Chandler in basketball, and I almost I got a little close to the circle, and Chandler was like, "I don't want you to step out. You better not do that." So just we did things like that as well. And as the evening went on, I'd say it was around 4 o'clock in the evening. We had Mr. Beast come out again, and he had a briefcase in his hand. He puts the briefcase on the $1 million, and he says, "Briefcase has $10,000 in it. I'll give it to whoever gets out first. But if nobody takes it, I'm gonna make it harder." So we kind of looked back and forth a little bit, like who's gonna be the guy who's gonna take it, and nobody took it. Chandler even like shoved it up to our faces and was like, "Smell the money, smell the money." But we we were then told by Jimmy, "You are now not allowed to sit down or lean on the $1 million. If you do so, you're out." On top of already, if you leave the circle. So we pretty much agreed to that, and that's where I had my best on-camera moment. And you guys are all going to cringe at this, but I was very proud of it at the time. The camera guy comes over to me, and I go, "Now that's what I call a standing offer." Yes, I know that's cringe. You can just skip by that and forget it ever happened. But I was proud of it at the time. But we continued on, and we didn't get dinner after this continued for another 6 hours. And I mean, we just kept going around in circles, walking around, talking. I talked to one guy in particular, and I mean, we probably did 30, 40 walks around the circle, if not more, just talking about whatever, just to buy time. By this point, 6 hours later, so feet were sore, my back's starting to get a little sore, things are starting to get rough. The competition's really kind of starting to settle in a bit. And Mr. Beast comes out again, and he sets the $1 million, or the 10,000 on the $1 million, and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna offer it again, $10,000, or I make it harder." Nobody budges. He says, "Okay, I'm gonna duct tape your legs together." And so we stand there, and the guys come around one by one, taping our legs together. We start hopping around. I had a race with another one of the contestants, a hop race. I almost slipped, but I did not end up falling, which was, thank goodness. But we kept going. But essentially what ended up happening is about an hour and a half later, there was a guy who said, "I will leave this circle if you give me $10,000 and a PlayStation 5. And Jimmy kind of says, "Okay, all right, I'll see what I can do." So he leaves, and mind you, I'm gonna go off on a bit of a side tangent here. They took away our sleeping bags, which was to be expected. They didn't want those on set as we were like filming a part of the video, right? Not only were they cooking like steaks off to the side over a fire, but they had taken our coats and jackets and like winter supplies away, and we thought we might be able to get them back. The crew kind of acted like they'd give them back. They didn't give them back. So we were cold, no food, and we were kind of being taunted about that fact too. So we are just kind of waiting on Jimmy's response here to this guy who says $10,000 in a PlayStation 5, and sure enough, he walks out, $10,000 in a PlayStation 5, and he left. And we cheered this guy on. We were very happy he left. We were all pretty much one big family unit inside of this circle. So we were actually kind of sad to see somebody go in a weird way. Like, it's kind of like a member of the family left. We were really connected because we were the people inside the circle, and we would talk to each other. So it was a very tight-knit group, and I really liked that about the group as a whole. Couldn't have gotten luckier in terms of the people who I was around and got to speak with and compete with. But he ended up leaving, and we went to bed. We were given our coats, jackets, all that back, and our sleeping bags back. And we got dinner at around midnight, and we went to bed at probably around 1. And we also had lights, because they do like time lapses, right, for these videos. So we still had lights on us all through the night. So I had a beanie on, and I would put the beanie like over my eyes to keep it dark. And I was sleeping in shoes because it was chilly out. A couple hours later, I wasn't able to get to sleep, but a couple hours later I hear some commotion and some spray painting. Now, I haven't explained spray painting because it's part of the story that I don't really feel is all that relevant. But essentially, spray painting meant that they were making the circle smaller, and they only did so when somebody left the circle. So I heard spray painting at around 3 o'clock in the morning, a couple hours after we'd gone to sleep. And I got to thinking, what happened? So I ended up waiting until the commotion was over. I used the porta potty, and I went to bed. I wasn't about to ask around what had happened. I figured it's probably best to sleep, and I'll check in the morning. And sure enough, a second person had left. So things were looking up at this point. And the third day had begun. And you could tell they were getting ready for something. On this third day, we kind of woke up. I can't remember if it was the first day or the second day. This is one of my favorite moments that you'll probably never get to see, but I thought was really funny. I woke up one morning and I had a camera shoved in my face, and the guy holding the camera just goes, "Good morning," and I just go, "Morning." So they probably have footage of that somewhere, and you guys will probably never get to see it, but that was a rough morning. But the morning of the third day, we all kind of get up and we look around and we're pretty proud of each other. We've lasted this long. Things have been going fairly well. But you can tell they gave us all like umbrellas too that we could like get shade under. And me and some of the other guys just kind of sat in a line and we talked under the shade, had some bro time with the other guys in the competition. Fun stuff. Really enjoyed that. But they were setting up like massive speakers that were like fresh, new, out of box, all around the circle. And we weren't exactly sure what was going to happen with these, but we figured it would be something annoying and something while we were trying to sleep. That's all we really ended up figuring out, because we got lunch, and then we could tell they were setting up, getting ready for maybe the next part of the competition, when Jimmy comes up to the circle, and he says, "Hey, we just had a guy, he's not on our staff, he's somebody we contracted out, to help with some like audio or some technical stuff, I'm not sure. But they contracted him out, and essentially he got COVID tested, came to set, didn't wait for the result until he got to set, found out his result was positive, so he ended up having to basically nix the competition right there. Mr. Beast was kind enough to essentially compensate us for our time, and we left with the promise that we would be able to come back later. So we were all pretty bummed. I mean, not exactly the ending that we wanted to this competition. But essentially we were like, okay, well, we'll get a comeback later. We'll get that done, and then we'll be done with this whole thing. So we wait around. Now, I went back home and I got to tell the story to my family and got to share it with them, and that was really cool just to be able to talk about the experience, show them I have a picture with Mr. Beast and Chandler, so I was able to show them that. But the entire experience was really neat, and I was pretty happy to be a part of it. But I waited through most of December when I get some texts about some potential dates that we might be able to work with for the new competition that we have to do. So I text back and forth with the Mr. Beast team. We get some dates organized, and before I know it, in January, we were flying to a different hotel, and we're going to do kind of a modified version of this competition. And everybody who got out was invited back. So, I mean, as a whole, we were hyped about being able to start afresh and see kind of where this was going to go. But we also had the caveat of a 3-day quarantine. So because I think a lot of us had college, a lot of us had work and other things, we can't exactly stay and do Mr. Beast things all of the time when we don't even have a promise that we're going to win anything, right? So we go to the hotel, we have a 3-day quarantine, and essentially we have some COVID issues when we start getting tested. Not too certain what all happened there, but there is some COVID stuff going on. And so essentially after a 3-day quarantine turned into a week quarantine, we got a phone call that said, hey, this isn't going to happen, essentially. I mean, Mr. Beast was on the phone call, a manager was on the phone call, and that was that. And they made sure that the experience was a fair one and that we all walked away happy still. But, I mean, kind of a bummer. I will say at the end of the day, though, for the experience being what it ended up being, and, you know, the fact that I'm probably not, I won't even say probably not, I doubt I will ever be in any Mr. Beast footage ever. I'll just say it like that. I am not sad about the experience, nor is it even really a bummer to me. It was at the time, and I think it's fair to have a negative reaction to that fact when it happened, but it was an experience like no other. I got to meet the Mr. Beast team. I got to interact with them, and I got to have just a blast of a time. Meet people that I never would have met otherwise, connected in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise, and I mean, it really was just a great experience, and I loved every minute of it, and I'm really happy that I'm able to. I got the news a couple weeks ago that I could share it publicly, and so that's what I'm doing, and I'm glad that I am able to now, and that you guys can kind of know what ended up happening with that, because I'm sure there's a couple of you, at least, who have been keeping track of me waiting for that news, and if you haven't been waiting for that news, thanks for sticking around in the video this long. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's generally the Mr. Beast story, and how it went down. There's a lot of other details I could talk about, like some of the hotel food that we did end up having while we were in the circle, and how it was not the best sometimes. Or the happiest I've ever been is when a septic cleaner person went into the porta potty and cleaned it out for us. I mean, there's a ton of extra details that I could talk about, but I think that's the gist of it, and I think that I included a lot of the more fun sketches and things that were going to be in the video that you won't otherwise see. I've tried to keep some elements also under wraps, because I'd say they'll probably be wanting to use some of them for future videos. But I think that's a good general idea for you guys to be able to see it, what happened in the Mr. Beast video. And again, I'm very open to questions. If you have anything that you want to know that I didn't bring up in this video, please feel free to comment, reach out in any way. I also have an Instagram link that I'll post in the description if you would rather ask me personally that way. Just however you want to do it. I'm free and available to be able to do so. But yeah, thanks for watching this far, and I appreciate you taking the time to do so, and I hope you like this story, and I'm once again, I'm just very happy that I'm able to share it now. So that's about it for now. I'll have more video content relating to myself and not Mr. Beast here soon. So if you're here for that, it'll be out shortly as well. I think my first video is going to be of some of the Phasmophobia that I played over stream. And that's about it. So I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.